Oh, hi everybody. How are you today? Um, Today I want to talk about being an insurance agent, um, which I've worked in that field on and off since the 90s. Um, Basically, if you do want to become an insurance agent, the first thing that you would need to do is probably take a class so that you can pass the insurance exams. They're not as easy as they used to be. Um, in the 90s, when I took my exams, I took the one for life and health, and then the one for property casualty, and then I also got a variable license so that I could sell variable products like mutual funds or variable life insurance, where the cash value is a variable account, like a securities account, you know. So for that, you have to have the 6 and 63. Later on, after I went independent, I just decided to not have that license anymore and just do the life and health and home and auto, as an independent, and commercial, which I've sold commercial insurance on and off as an independent for various lines. And then I did work in someone else's office and sold commercial there. And then I also worked as a remote call center customer service agent for commercial insurance, some sales, and then handling clients for a lot of business accounts and explaining it to them. It's a little more complicated, but nothing to me is as complicated as medical insurance, health insurance, and basically dental insurance is very confusing, can be, and as well as Medicare supplements, which I've never sold any of those products. Mainly in the 90s, in the until about the year 2003, I was primarily sold just home, auto, and life, and commercial as an independent, because at one point I started with Prudential, then I went into being an independent agent for quite some time, and then I went into that on and off. So it's on a commission usually, but you can maybe find another agent to work for in their office in various capacities, but most all require some kind of license. Even if you just get a solicitor's license, which means that you can make phone calls for a licensed agent. After I sort of left that and then decided to get back into it some time back after moving back and forth, to California and back, this whole, I want to be a full-time actor, which is very challenging. But I'll tell you what, we've already been through that, and you already know that most actors have to have another job or business, but a few occasionally can work long periods of time at it if they book a longer gig on a TV show or some movie, whatever. But very competitive. But being an insurance agent is kind of challenging too to make money at, because it's usually on a strictly commission. Although if you're working in some other agent's office, you might get a salary, or salary plus commission. But usually at one point it can be strictly commission if you work for another agent. So it's a lot of prospecting, a lot of networking and prospecting, which is very similar to trying to get roles in movies and things. However, of course, with acting, you have to have a lot of training to get pretty good, and I've taken a lot of training, but you have to really sort of rationalize all that in your mind if you've spent a lot of money at it versus the money you made. Same thing with insurance, though. A lot of places will try to get you to buy a bunch of leads and to make calls, which sometimes they're pretty cheap, but now they're starting to go up in price like everything else. And then you have to call a lot of people to get people interested in wanting to buy the insurance. Now, a lot of companies have gone directly with insurance and no longer use agents too. But then a lot of people still want to use an agent to buy their insurance and have somebody explain it to them and be their service agent and be kind of available. I always found that just homeowners insurance and life insurance were the easiest to explain to people. There were a lot of variables with the auto insurance, and I also have enjoyed selling commercial insurance because I thought it was more interesting, and also to help people when they wanted to start a business. But then after I came back to Texas a few times after getting out of insurance, after being in it quite some time, I found myself having to start all over again, which makes me sort of hesitant to start all over on strictly commission, because then there's certain expenses like rating software, and some companies you can pay a fee to rate all their coverages. Especially as an independent agent, you can quote for various companies that you can get appointed with. You know, you have to talk to different places and get different agencies to appoint you as the agent, or carriers directly to the carriers. And then you have to have E&O insurance, and it's just a lot of expense. So being older, I sort of decided I would rather work for another agent. However, if I can find the right situation where I can start quoting insurance again and selling, I'll do that too. But it's just so challenging, everything, to make money. And I'm working on positive thinking programs too, like basically just be careful of everything we say, and everything. We have to be positive thinking nowadays. Now, in recent years, I've gone and gotten cashiering jobs and a lot of different things. When I first started with insurance, I actually worked for a mortgage broker just part-time in his office, and then that way I at least had a little salary, and then I went and worked strictly commission selling insurance. So that's just kind of a rundown of it. You can go to a lot of different schools, or you can go to a lot of online classes too to get your licenses. And then every 2 years you have to pay to have your licenses renewed and get your continuing education. It's kind of like real estate in that way. So, but it's a lot of prospecting and meeting people, networking, getting referrals, and so it's not easy. I just sort of ended up doing that in the 90s, because when I was in the news business, even though it was on a smaller basis, it was very competitive to get news jobs, and it still is, to get jobs in news. But I did work for several small papers as a reporter, editor, and then I've sold advertising before too. So, but that's kind of a rundown on insurance. I will go into more detail on it. You can make it fun and funny. In fact, I'm kind of like writing a little script right now about, I might present that sometime, or I have to see how it goes, but it's based on that industry. There are some comedic events that can happen to you as an agent. Just anytime you deal with people, you can find all kinds of funny things. And I'm working now on kind of starting to laugh more, because in life we could sit and cry and be sad, or we can just laugh about things, because some things that we worry about aren't even really what we should be worried about. I mean, we really shouldn't worry about anything. We should just, I think, I've learned the hard way, just do the very best we can, and then pray. And then sometimes we don't have to make decisions right away. But But basically, I just wanted to share that with you. It's a lot to it, and then you do oftentimes are required to work on a strictly commission in that field also. Of course, there's a lot of other areas to go into, underwriting and claims, and all those jobs are normally salary jobs. So that's kind of it on the insurance thing. Let's see here. I guess I can tell you more about it. I'm sort of thinking I might want to learn more about Medicare supplement insurance. I am licensed to sell a few of those products, although I have not sold any Medicare supplements. I just find it very confusing, and just for my own reference, I'm trying to learn a lot, just about all that, because it's so helpful as you get older to know all that stuff. And I'm realizing now that I'm going to have to make a lot more money to pay for things that I might need, dental, because insurance doesn't always cover all of our dental anyway. In fact, a lot of times it just depends on your policy, but every policy you get is different, and every company you get is different, and you have to just sit down and look at it. It's not always fun. It's kind of like trying to do your taxes or housework or decluttering or cleaning or losing weight or working out the gym or all these things that that sort of we want to do aren't always that fun, but I'm finding myself more and more that even if I got lucky to be, well, I've worked really hard to get acting gigs. I've taken classes for several years, and I've studied very hard, and I've been in a lot of different things that are low pay acting projects, student films, independent films, theater, but even then it gets to a point where you have to reevaluate your money situation, and that's something we all have to do. So you kind of have to find work that satisfies you, makes you happy, but then if you're really wanting to do all this creative work, and that's a lot of work too to make a living at it, but people do, and a lot of people just are determined, and I am determined actually, even though it takes a long time, but I still feel, and maybe that's because that's the way I feel, but for most people, that I would have to have another job or business to go with it. It's just all very challenging, especially when you're older, and I don't want to get into a lot of personal things about finances, but sometimes you just have to do the best you can, and you may end up having to work a lot when you're a lot older and not realize it, because that's what I'm going to need to do, looks like. I'm still, it's kind of fun to work too, if you like work. I like it, okay, it depends. But now, the substitute teaching, that is something else altogether. That's not a regular job, although sometimes you can get long-term assignments or go every day for a week. Of course, you don't get paid as much as the teachers. It's just like a little temp office job or something. That is usually it's pretty simple. Usually it depends though on what you're subbing for, but the discipline part is the hard part, because anybody that's had a substitute teacher knows that some kids try to take advantage of subs and act crazy and disrupt the room a lot. I've never been blessed with my own beautiful children as a mom, so I'm probably, when I have subbed over the years, I have been, in fact, there's some kids outside running around crazy. They just got out of school, and the two moms next on the other side of me have got their kids out there. So, but basically, it's challenging, to go into a room with 20 kids or 30 kids, depending on, sometimes even 40 or 50. They used to have more children in the room depending on the age group. The younger they are, it depends. I've been a substitute teacher both in Texas and out in California, and it depends on the rules and regs that they have, because the older the kids are, the more students that can be in the classroom, and the younger the kids are, the less children, because I've subbed K through 12 a lot, but usually I always ended up subbing 4th and 5th grade because they seemed a little easier to manage, and then sometimes middle school, preferably an honors class for math because they're the best behaved, like 7th and 8th graders. Sometimes 6th graders are okay, depends, for middle school. And then high school, the best behaved ones are normally seniors in the fall. Now in the spring, they get a little crazy when they're getting ready to graduate, but usually they're better, but they're still serious. They're thinking about their future days, the future. They're thinking about college and jobs, and and sometimes juniors can be better behaved too. Sometimes freshmen and sophomores can act kind of crazy. So it just depends. But kindergarten, that's a whole nother ball game, and it's very challenging. And I've subclasses for kindergarten, and I've often have had to ask for help, which usually they can do. Another teacher can run down. You can call the office, and somebody from the office or teacher will run down. But I just think kindergartners, they're just so crazy and acting, and a lot of times they don't always understand what you're trying to explain to them either, because I'm used to working more with adults. So, but a lot of retired teachers do well subbing kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, because they're used to handling children, and they've been long-term teachers, especially elementary school teachers. They do great. A lot of retired teachers are great at subbing. And then a lot of really young teachers right out of school that just got their teaching certificate, and they do well to be teachers at elementary school, because it's a higher, you have to really keep up the pace with those little ones. They can literally run all over the place, so that's a big thing. And so just make sure of the assignment. I've had some special cases where it turns out that it's more like special ed, and I always make sure there's somebody else to help you when there's a lot of children with different behavioral problems. So, but that in and of itself it can be interesting, and but so many jobs are so different. And now then, more recently, I also worked as a cashier to help me supplement my little retirement, and that can be pretty good depending on what you're doing and where you are. But sometimes it's more challenging if you're used to selling over the phone, like insurance or advertising, and then going to see the people or whatever. You have that period where you can put somebody on hold, ask a question, go look. But when you're a cashier, they're just staring right at you, and most are real nice, but you'll run into that one. There'll always be that one every once in a while that wants to make a big case about the price of the oranges or whatever. I remember one time when I worked at a grocery store, I asked the manager to help me. She was just so determined about the price of this one orange, and finally the manager said, "Would you really like this orange?" And she said, "Yes." He said, "I'll give it to you. It's my gift for you." And so, but some customers are just so determined on being right, and they have a right to be, but when the line's out to the end and there's some discrepancy over like 10 cents, you know. So it's not easy for cashiers. So, and then back to the insurance, a lot of cold calling can be involved. You may have to just start cold calling. I used to do a lot of that. And, but I think I might try to just get a part-time job at another agent's office. Although if I could find some other agents to work with, I might still try to work, you know, on my own, which I could do, I guess. Now, I could go ahead and run quotes for people through other agents. I'm kind of having to figure out something, but there's so many things I want to do before I get really old and elderly. And you know, if you're older and you go to the dentist, they almost think that you're that, you know, whatever. Anyway, so I haven't had to have any. I didn't want to go into it, but you know, there's all these things that people talk about getting as you get older, and you may have to get this and that, and a lot of these things they put in, like I had a partial last year, and I just couldn't even talk with it on. I mean, I literally could not talk. Now, if you can't eat a lot, maybe that'll help me lose weight. I always think of stuff like that, or, you know, and then with the economy and the budget and everything, but you know, when you're older and you have to work and you owe a lot of bills, in addition, you know, your little retirement payment doesn't cover all of it. You have to think like a younger person, because and I just I've seen so many older people, well, although my grandmother lived to be almost 100, but as she got older and had to depend on other people, I think it just kind of broke her heart, because she was such an independent person. But the more you can do for yourself as you get older, and not so kind of as you're in the preliminary stages of being older versus the older stages of being older, whatever age you are, you know, whether you're over 40, 50, 60, 70, whatever it is, and on up, the more you can do, I think, for yourself, the more happy you'll be. And everything. So I think it's just important to have fun and if you can, but you have to figure it all out and balance it out. I've actually been given 2 different possible movie roles coming up, but it might not be for another year or 2, and I can't talk about them. But one of the writers called me, and he's an actor too, and then another lady I know. I can't talk about all the details, but it takes a long time sometimes to get these movies together, and then you have to get paid, and so, and I'm still, I'm actually working on being healthier, to have more energy, to meet more people and have more fun, and date some. So again, and but there's been times, back to the insurance, I've thought about just let it go. I mean, there's been times I really enjoyed it, and then other times it was a struggle. But I am probably going to go ahead and renew my licenses, because on and off there's been times when I was able to work part-time in insurance or do different things here and there, or I might even be able to, you know, sell again, you know, on a commission. Of course, it's all, but the more ways we can make money, the better. I mean, so many things require discipline though, like cold calling, you know, sitting down to write a script. But I think it's what my cat is getting. Okay, so let's see what he's going to do. I'm just going to pick him up. Oh God, he's getting heavy. Here he is. He's saying hi to you. See, so but anyway, maybe it's time to wrap up the video. Is that what he's trying to tell me? Oh gosh, he's heavy. So it's time for another walk, I guess. But I guess that's it. I just it can be challenging to work on all these things, but you know, when it comes to work, it's great if you can find something really fun, but you have to, it's good to have that more in your personal life because sometimes work is just work and it's to help people as if you're in the service industry, but also to pay your bills. So, but I am open to other jobs too, like call center for credit cards because I've you know I'm I've had credit cards. I have anyway. I'm trying to pay mine off somehow. In fact, that's why I'm probably going to have to go back to work some. And it's important to ask for more money because I've worked all my life and I never asked for a lot of money. I always thought, well, part of it was self-esteem. Even though I had a college degree and everything, I thought, well, you know, it's so competitive. And it has been, especially when I was in the news business, you know, to ask for, I'll take the job for a lower salary, thinking, well, then that way I'll get the job. And a lot of times it worked. I got the job. But then I forgot to ask for more money later after they kept dumping work on me. I worked in places where in the news business I was doing the work of 2 or 3 people, you know, on a set salary, which comes to a lot lower than a minimum wage hourly rate. So, and there were times on strictly commission when I had to spend a lot of time doing service work for different customers, and they was call and scream at me, and they think all the insurance agents are rich, you know, and but most of them are not. Most of them are struggling, just like most actors. I hate to use the word struggling. They just haven't figured out how to make much money at it yet. But, or maybe make their own projects to make money. But most insurance agents are really just working strictly commission. And I finally told this one man, I said, he was just complaining about the craziest things. I told this other manager, and it wasn't even anything. It was just ridiculous what he was, I mean, we're talking about a very small amount of money that he just felt like he paid per year for his insurance policy, and he had all this cash value in it, but he didn't have that much in it. And I would always help and explain things to him, and he was getting mixed up about his dividends and everything. And finally, I took the advice that one sales manager said I could tell him. I said, because he was being hateful to me. I think maybe because I was a woman. I don't know. Maybe because nobody else would talk to him. I don't know. But I finally said, you know, I'm doing the best I can for you, but I'm on a strictly commission, and I'm always in trouble, or I was, on my sales life insurance quota, and then I've sold home and auto, and that's all on a commission. But, sir, I told him, sir, I only make $10 a year off your policy, so every time you've called me, it ends up being like, I'm doing like a lot of work for you for like 50 cents, you know, and no salary. So, you know, a lot of times people, I guess I've had kind of a, you know, because I had a rough go of it with a certain adult authority figure. Well, I don't want to, that's a whole other thing, but growing up with one of my parents. So you kind of learn to be sort of skeptical and cautious with everybody. But there comes a time when you have to at least understand other people and realize that I'm in charge of my own life. And if I want to find a fun job, maybe I can, you know. Now, another thing that we'll be doing is my friend Angela Shelton has these sacred circus healing events for people that have gone through childhood trauma, or also to educate people about things going on in the world and how we need to protect all the kids and everything. Well, that can be fun, but then that's a lot of planning too. It's like event planning. Like, for example, if you want to be like a wedding planner or even somebody that plans cruises for people or company events, or there's a lot to that, and it's a lot of self-discipline too. So a lot of jobs and businesses are just strictly commission, and then or they don't pay as much as what people think, and I don't know. I'm just kind of saying that maybe we could think about being nice to people a little bit, or even if we're at the grocery store and the cashier's not very nice. I mean, maybe the last person just yelled at her. I mean, maybe they just, because you think about it all day. I mean, when I've done that kind of work, I've just been so exhausted at the end. I cashiered at a grocery store before, and then cashiered at this is in later years, as I've been older, at a restaurant cashier. But I always wanted to be a bartender, but you have to lift a lot of stuff sometimes, depending on the job. But I always thought, well, every job is so fun, but then you talk to the people that do it, and it's not easy. Anytime you're dealing with the public, it can be exhausting. And but I was thinking the other day about, like, because I've had to go to 2 different dentists recently. One was covered under my insurance, and then the other one just had a special, so they were running a free special. But then they didn't take my insurance. They wanted to see anyway. They said, well, we're running. So, but you see what they go through at these, offices, what a dentist goes through. I mean, I had some really good dentists growing up, but every job where you have to deal with the public a lot is not easy. But if that's what you tell yourself, depends. I mean, you have to kind of figure it out. But I am kind of a social person. I do like being around people and talking to people. And I know some people do better to just be writers and just do that. But yeah, with acting, you still have to be a salesperson. You are the product. You have to put together tapes and things for casting directors and agents to look at. You audition for things. You turn in your clips, or you even go in person if you can. But it's still a matter of sales, and you sell them on your training, and everything. Just like in you as the character, you're doing the same thing. Like selling insurance is an intangible with the insurance, though, but you're still selling like the company and the product, and but on the other hand, if you're really like more of an introverted person, you might just want to be a writer and not deal with a lot of people. But if you get into writing screenplays, eventually you will have to, you need to at some point become a little more extroverted to get out there and sell your script to somebody and work with other people. Because most movies are like a big team effort with lots of people. And the players may change a lot. And, you just have to keep working on whatever you want to work on in life, I guess. And when I was younger, sometimes I think I would just go for the quick fix for the job. Quick fix with personal things too, like maybe even a few friends like that. I'll just have a friend, and didn't even think if just somebody to go to happy hour with or something. I mean, that's okay, but it comes a time in life where you need more important friends. So I have been blessed at different times in my life with friends that had more value. We gave each other more value. But the same thing with like dating, like, I'll just go with him for a while. But usually I've always been more picky, and as I've gotten older, more picky. But it's always like that with everything, and with jobs especially true, you just want to have like a quick fix. Like, I'll just do this job even if it's not for me. But in this economy now, we're having to do a lot of that. And I do believe that when you're trying to make extra money, you may have to put up with a lot more than you would in your personal life. But when your personal life, and of course I did a video about that one day, that I've learned a lot of this the hard way being older. But but it's hard. I mean, a lot of people, they get sort of codependent with people and used to people and all that. But with your friends or you're dating or having relationships, maybe trying to find somebody to have a relationship with, or just, like I said, just with dating and that type of thing, you really don't have to put up with as much or anything that you don't want to put up with, because it's just social, it's your personal life. So, but on the other hand, with work and business and where you're going to get a paycheck or a commission check or something, or benefits, you know, like, then you have to put up with more. So I just thought I'd kind of touch on all these bases. As you get older, you have to kind of reevaluate. My life did not turn out like I thought. My cat wants out now. So, but it's okay. I mean, I guess at one point, I guess I just thought that I was going to get married and have like maybe 5 kids, or maybe at least 2 or 3, and be more of a homemaker. And then in my free time, I would work on like writing, maybe some acting, dancing, fun things, you know, creative stuff, art, and maybe work in that a little bit, you know, maybe just like a community theater type of thing, or dancing, maybe. But, I mean, that's kind of it. But basically, but you have to just kind of do a pivot, I guess, or a 360 or at 180, you know, kind of turn and reevaluate. And so you just have to go from there and figure out the next step. So, well, I'll be talking to y'all later, and you have a good day, and have fun when you can. And you may have to find some fun things to do that don't require any money or much money or anything, you know, just fun things like walking around, maybe go to the pool, or, you know, as it gets summertime, go to the pool or the lake, or just walk around or watch movies, or, you know. Okay, guys, talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye.